The morning rush at Stellar Brews was in full swing as Faye Miller balanced 3 plates of pancakes along her forearm. The small cafe sat at the edge of New Haven, Connecticut, unremarkable except for its proximity to the university's advanced physics department. Steam rose from coffee mugs. Conversations hummed beneath the soft indie music playing overhead, and Faye navigated the familiar chaos with practiced ease. "Order up for table 7, she called, setting down the plates before wiping her hands on her apron. At 26, Faye had spent the last 4 years serving coffee and breakfast to the same rotating cast of characters: sleep-deprived students, professors with their noses buried in research papers, and the occasional tourist who stumbled in for the cafe's famous blueberry muffins. The routine had become so familiar that she could predict most orders before customers opened their mouths. What no one at Stellar Brews knew, not even Pete, the owner who'd hired her after her music scholarship fell through, was that Faye had an extraordinary gift. She heard music in everything, not metaphorically but literally. The clink of spoons against ceramic created distinct notes. The hiss of the espresso machine formed bass lines. The overlapping conversations assembled themselves into complex harmonies that only she could perceive. She'd kept this ability secret her entire life, assuming everyone experienced sound the way she did until a childhood incident proved otherwise. Her parents had called it an overactive imagination. Her former music teachers had attributed it to perfect pitch, but Faye knew it was something else entirely, something she couldn't explain. "Hey, can I get a refill?" A man in a rumpled suit raised his mug from the corner booth, interrupting her thoughts. "Coming right up, Mr. Harris," Faye replied, grabbing the coffee pot. As she poured, she noticed something unusual through the cafe window: a sleek black car with tinted windows pulling up outside. In the 5 years she'd worked at Stellar Brews, she'd never seen a vehicle that expensive in this part of town. The bell above the door chimed as 3 people entered, 2 men in dark suits flanking a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun. Unlike the usual customers, they moved with deliberate purpose, scanning the room methodically before taking seats at a table in the corner. Faye approached with menus and her usual greeting, but the musical patterns emanating from these strangers were unlike anything she'd ever heard: precise, mathematical, almost artificial. A shiver ran down her spine. "Just coffee," the woman said, her accent impossible to place, "and information about Professor Gallagher's recent visit." Faye blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" The woman's expression didn't change. "Daniel Gallagher, theoretical physicist. He meets a colleague here every Tuesday morning." "I don't discuss our customers," Faye said, suddenly protective of the lanky professor who always ordered a plain bagel and discussed what sounded like science fiction with his research partner. The woman smiled thinly and slid a business card across the table. "Eliza Warren, United States Space Defense Initiative. We have reason to believe Professor Gallagher may be in danger. We're here to help." As Faye stared at the card, the musical patterns around her shifted, discordant notes gathering like storm clouds. For the first time in her life, the music was trying to warn her of something. "I'll get your coffee," she said carefully, tucking the card into her apron pocket. As she walked away, she could feel their eyes tracking her movement. Whatever was happening, she realized her ordinary life had just become extraordinarily complicated. Next day was Faye's day off, and she spent it playing her second-hand piano in her tiny apartment, trying to recreate the strange musical patterns she'd heard from the visitors. Something about them had seemed almost inhuman, too perfect, too calculated. She thought about Professor Gallagher with his wild gray hair and kind eyes. He had been coming to the cafe for years, always polite, always leaving a generous tip. Sometimes he would sit for hours, scribbling equations in his worn notebook. He didn't seem like someone who would be in danger. He didn't seem like someone who would attract the attention of a government agency Faye had never heard of. That evening, her curiosity got the better of her. She looked up Professor Gallagher online and found that he was indeed a theoretical physicist at the university, specializing in quantum communication and what the articles called deep space anomalies. Most of his recent work was classified. Faye also searched for the United States Space Defense Initiative but found nothing official. Just conspiracy theory websites mentioning it alongside stories about alien cover-ups and secret government programs. She was about to give up when her phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Faye Miller?" A man's voice, elderly, slightly breathless. "This is Daniel Gallagher. I need to speak with you. It's urgent." Faye sat up straight, surprised. "Professor, how did you get my number?" "That's not important right now. Did some people come asking about me?" "Yes," Faye admitted. "Yesterday, a woman named Eliza Warren and 2 men. They said you might be in danger." There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. "They're not who they claim to be, Ms. Miller. And yes, I am in danger, we all are, but not in the way they suggested." "What do you mean? Who are they?" "I can't explain over the phone, it's not secure." His voice lowered. "I need your help. You have a gift, don't you? You can hear patterns that others can't." Faye felt her heart skip a beat. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I've been studying people like you for decades. People who can perceive quantum harmonics naturally. It's incredibly rare." He paused again. "Meet me tomorrow before your shift, at the old observatory on the West Campus. 6 a.m. Come, alone, and tell no one." The line went dead before she could respond. Faye sat in the dark of her apartment, the phone still in her hand. For years she had kept her ability secret, convinced that revealing it would only lead to ridicule or worse. And now suddenly a professor she barely knew was telling her it was real, and somehow important. She should ignore him. Go to work tomorrow as usual. Forget about secret government agencies and mysterious warnings. But deep down, she knew she wouldn't. For the first time, someone understood what she could do. Someone could explain why she heard the world differently than everyone else. Outside her window, a car drove past slowly, its headlights sweeping across her wall. Faye moved to the window and peered out cautiously. A black sedan was parked across the street, barely visible in the shadows. Someone was watching her apartment. The musical patterns around her shifted again, urgent now, insistent. Whatever was happening, she was already involved. And tomorrow morning, she would find out why. The old observatory stood on a hill at the edge of campus, its dome silhouetted against the pale dawn sky. Faye arrived at 5:55 a.m., her breath visible in the cool morning air. She had taken a long, winding route to make sure she wasn't followed, doubling back several times and even cutting through a shopping mall that opened early for morning walkers. She found the side door unlocked, as Professor Gallagher had promised in his text message. The interior was dim, lit only by emergency exit signs and the gray light filtering through dusty windows. Equipment covered in sheets created strange shapes in the shadows. Her footsteps echoed on the tile floor. "Professor?" she called softly. "Up, here." His voice came from the observation deck above. Faye climbed the spiral staircase to find Professor Gallagher standing beside a large telescope that pointed through an opening in the dome. Maps and printouts were spread across a table, held down by coffee mugs and small equipment parts. "Thank you for coming," he said, looking more disheveled than usual. His eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "I wasn't sure if you would." "You said you know about my ability," Faye replied. "No one has ever understood it before." Professor Gallagher nodded and gestured to the chair across from him. 6 years ago, I began receiving unusual signals from a star system about 12 light-years away. The university thought it was just background radiation, but I recognized patterns in it." He slid a folder toward her. Inside were pages of data, printouts, and what looked like musical notation. 2 years ago, I discovered something remarkable," he continued. "The patterns weren't random. They contained mathematical sequences too precise to be natural." "You think someone sent them?" Faye asked. "Like aliens?" The professor smiled slightly. "Perhaps. But what's more interesting is that these signals operate on frequencies that most humans can't perceive. Our instruments can detect them, but interpreting them has been challenging. He pulled out a small device that looked like a digital recorder. "I've converted some of the signals to our audible range. Listen." He pressed play. What emerged was a series of tones and pulses that would sound like noise to most people. But to Faye, it was beautiful and structured. She could hear layers of patterns within patterns, mathematical relationships expressing themselves as pure sound. Her eyes widened. "This sounds like what I hear all the time, but clearer, more deliberate." "Exactly," Professor Gallagher said, watching her face carefully. "People with your sensitivity are extremely rare. My daughter Olivia was one. She helped me study these signals before she disappeared 6 months ago." Faye looked up sharply. "Disappeared?" "She was working late here one night. By morning, she was gone. Her apartment was emptied. Her university records deleted. It was as if she never existed." His voice cracked slightly. "The police found nothing. The university claimed she had transferred. But I know better." "And you think these people who came to the cafe are responsible?" Faye asked. "The ones pretending to be from the Space Defense Initiative?" Professor Gallagher nodded grimly. "They call themselves the Sentinel Group. They operate within various government agencies, but they answer to no oversight. They've been monitoring my work for years, but recently they've become more aggressive." "What do they want?" "Control of the signals. Or rather, control of what the signals contain." He pulled up another file on his tablet. "Recently, the transmissions changed. They began sending technical information, equations that describe a new form of energy production, far beyond our current capabilities, technology that could transform our civilization overnight." Faye tried to process this information. "And these people think you have this technology? They think I can decode it completely." He looked at her intently. "But I can't, not alone. The final parts of the transmission are in a form that requires your kind of perception." A cold feeling settled in Faye's stomach. "Is that why your daughter disappeared? Because she could hear the patterns too?" Professor Gallagher's silence was answer enough. "Why are you telling me this?" Faye asked. "You're putting me in danger too." "Because something is coming," he replied urgently. "The transmissions have been counting down to an event 3 weeks from now. I don't know what it is, but the Sentinel Group is preparing for it, and I need someone who can help me complete the decoding before they do." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small object that looked like a music box. "This contains all my research and the raw signal data. It's encrypted in a way only someone with your abilities can unlock. If anything happens to me, you need to take this to this address." He handed her a slip of paper with coordinates written on it. Before Faye could respond, a sound from below made them both freeze, the main door opening. "They found us," the professor whispered. "Take this and go out the roof access. There's a maintenance ladder on the north side." "But what about you?" Faye asked, clutching the music box. "I'll stall them. Remember, trust no one who can't hear the patterns." He pressed something into her hand, a small flash drive. "This contains a single frequency. If you need to know if someone is truly on our side, play this. Only people like you will recognize it correctly." Footsteps sounded on the stairs. "Go," Professor Gallagher urged. "Now!" Faye slipped through the roof access door just as voices echoed in the observatory below. As she climbed down the maintenance ladder, she heard Professor Gallagher greeting someone calmly as if he'd been expecting them. She hit the ground running, clutching the music box and flash drive. The campus was still quiet at this early hour, with only a few early joggers and maintenance workers around. Faye kept to the shadows of buildings, her mind racing. Her ordinary life as a waitress had vanished in less than 24 hours. Now she was running from mysterious government agents, carrying secrets about signals from another world, all because she could hear patterns in sound that others couldn't. As she reached the edge of campus, she looked back at the observatory. A black SUV was now parked outside, with 2 men in suits standing guard. Faye turned away and kept walking. She had a shift at the cafe in 2 hours. She would go to work as normal, pretend nothing had happened, and then she would figure out what to do with the strange music box that now felt impossibly heavy in her bag. Whatever was coming in 3 weeks, she was now part of it. The cafe was busy as usual when Faye arrived for her shift. She tied her apron with shaking hands, trying to act normal despite the weight of the music box hidden in her locker in the back room. Every time the door opened, she tensed, expecting to see the woman who called herself Eliza Warren or her suited companions. "You okay?" Pete asked, setting a tray of clean mugs on the counter. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just didn't sleep well," Faye replied, forcing a smile. "For 3 hours. She served coffee and took orders, moving through the familiar routine while her mind raced with questions. What were the signals Professor Gallagher had shown her? What was happening in 3 weeks? And most importantly, what should she do with the items he had given her? The lunch rush was ending when her phone buzzed with a news alert. University. Professor found unconscious in campus observatory. Possible gas leak. Faye nearly dropped the coffee pot. She clicked on the article and saw Professor Gallagher's name. He had been taken to the university hospital in serious condition. "I need to take my break," she told Pete, already untying her apron. Outside, she called the hospital but was told no information could be given to non-family members. She thought about going there but realized that would be exactly what the Sentinel group would expect. They would be watching. Instead, she walked to a small park 2 blocks away and sat on a bench partly hidden by bushes. There, she opened her bag and examined the music box properly for the first time. It looked antique, with carved wooden sides and a metal key. When she turned the key, instead of playing a simple tune, it produced a complex series of tones similar to what she had heard in the observatory. As it played, small panels on its sides slid open, revealing hidden compartments. Inside one was a tiny data card. In another, a folded piece of paper with handwritten notes, frequencies, times, and dates. The latest 3 weeks from now marked with a double circle. The third compartment contained a small brass key. Faye copied the information to her phone, then returned everything to the box. She needed a safe place to examine the data card, somewhere the Sentinel group wouldn't look for her. She thought about her friend Greg, who worked in the computer lab at the community college where she took night classes. He owed her a favor after she had covered his tab at the cafe several times. After her shift ended, Faye took a roundabout route to the community college, watching carefully to make sure she wasn't followed. The campus was quiet in the late afternoon with only a few evening classes in session. Greg was alone in the lab, working on a pile of computers that needed repairs. "Faye, what brings you here?" he asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I need a favor," she said. "Can I use one of these computers for something private? And can you make sure no one sees what I'm doing?" Greg raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Sure. Use that one in the corner. The security cameras don't cover that area." He grinned. "Not that anyone checks them anyway." Faye sat at the computer and inserted the data card. It contained dozens of files, audio recordings, data charts, and a video file dated from 6 months ago. She clicked on the video. Professor Gallagher's daughter, Olivia, appeared on screen. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. But there was an intensity to her that reminded Faye of her father. "If you're watching this, it means my father trusted you with our research," Olivia began. "And it probably also means one or both of us is in danger." Faye glanced around nervously, but Greg was occupied with his repairs on the other side of the room. "The signals we've been receiving are not from aliens," Olivia continued. "They're from us, or rather, from human technology, approximately 300 years in the future." Faye stared at the screen in shock. Future humans discovered that during certain astronomical alignments, quantum signals can be sent back through time. "They've been sending us warnings about a technological path we're about to take. Specifically, a new energy source that will be discovered soon. It seems miraculous at first, but it has a catastrophic flaw that won't be detected until it's too late." Olivia explained that the signals contained the correct equations to develop safe energy technology instead. The problem was that certain groups had learned about this potential energy source but didn't believe or didn't care about the warning. The Sentinel Group wants the technology without the safety protocols, Olivia said. They think they can control it, use it for military applications. They can't. She leaned closer to the camera. In 3 weeks, there will be an astronomical alignment that creates the perfect conditions for receiving the complete transmission. We need to be at these coordinates with the right equipment to receive it. But the Sentinel Group will do anything to stop us or control the information. Olivia gave detailed instructions for building a receiver using parts that could be purchased at any electronics store. The music box itself was a key component. Its unique resonance patterns were necessary to calibrate the device correctly. If you're watching this, you can hear the patterns like I can, Olivia finished. Trust that ability. It will guide you. The video ended. Faye sat back, her mind spinning. Time travel, future warnings, secret government groups. It sounded impossible. Yet the musical patterns she had heard in the signals had felt so familiar, so human. Everything okay? Greg called from across the room. Yeah, Faye replied automatically. Just some research for a class. She downloaded the files to a secure cloud account, then removed the card. As she was about to leave, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Professor G, conscious but under guard. Watch the cafe. They're looking for you now. Oh, Olivia. It had to be. Faye thanked Greg and left quickly, knowing she couldn't go back to her apartment or the cafe. The Sentinel Group would be watching both places. She needed somewhere to hide while she figured out how to build the receiver and what to do next. As she walked down the street, a black SUV turned the corner ahead. Faye ducked into a store entrance, heart pounding. When the vehicle passed, she continued in the opposite direction, now certain of one thing. Her normal life was over, at least for the next 3 weeks. Whatever was coming, she needed to be ready. Faye spent the night at her friend Kelly's apartment, claiming a fight with her roommate as the reason she needed a place to stay. She slept fitfully, waking at every sound, her mind filled with images from Olivia's video and the strange music of the signals. In the morning, she used Kelly's laptop to research the parts needed for the receiver. Most were common electronics components, but a few were more specialized. She made a list and planned her day carefully. I need to borrow some money, she told Kelly over breakfast. Just until payday. I'll pay you back, I promise. Kelly looked concerned but handed over $60. Are you in some kind of trouble, Faye? No, Faye lied. Just some unexpected expenses. Thanks for this. Her first stop was a pawn shop where she sold her watch and a pair of earrings her parents had given her for graduation. The extra cash would help her stay off the grid longer. No credit card transactions that could be traced. At an electronics store in a different part of town, she purchased most of the components on her list. The clerk raised an eyebrow at her selections but asked no questions. The more specialized parts would have to wait. She needed to find a secure place to work first. As she left the store, Faye spotted a familiar black SUV parked across the street. Her heart raced as she ducked back inside and exited through a side door. They were tracking her movements faster than she had expected. She took a bus to the edge of town, then walked to a small motel that advertised weekly rates and paid in cash for 3 days. The room was basic but clean, with a small table where she could work on building the receiver. By evening, she had assembled the first stage of the device according to Olivia's instructions. The music box sat at its center, its intricate mechanisms now connected to a circuit board that amplified and processed its signals. Faye's phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. Professor moved to private facility. Cannot track location. Be careful with purchases. They're watching electronic stores. Need to meet. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. City Library, Rare Books Room. Oh. Faye stared at the message. Was it really Olivia, or was it a trap? She had no way to know for sure except by showing up. She spent the rest of the evening working on the receiver, following the detailed diagrams from the data card. The work was precise, requiring steady hands and careful attention. Each component had to be placed exactly right for the device to function correctly. Around midnight, she tested the first stage. The music box began to play its strange melody, and the attached screen displayed a series of numbers that matched the frequencies listed in Professor Gallagher's notes. It was working. Faye allowed herself a small smile of victory. Then she hid the device in the room's air vent, gathered the remaining components, and slept with her clothes on, ready to run if necessary. The next day, she arrived at the library, an hour early, and spent time walking around all the floors checking for anyone who might be watching. The rare books room was on the third floor, a quiet space with glass display cases and a few reading tables. At exactly 2 p.m., a young woman entered. She wore jeans and a hoodie pulled low over her face, but Faye recognized her from the video. Olivia Gallagher, thinner and more tired-looking in person, but with the same intense eyes as her father. Olivia sat at Faye's table without speaking and opened a book as if studying. She slid a small device across the table, a signal jammer. "Now we can talk," she said quietly. "They can't listen electronically with this on." "How do I know you're really Olivia?" Faye asked. "How do I know this isn't a trap?" In response, Olivia hummed a few notes, the same pattern from the music box but with subtle variations that Faye immediately recognized as a form of authentication. Only someone who could hear the patterns would know how to modify them in exactly that way. "You've started building the receiver," Olivia said. It wasn't a question. Faye nodded. "The first stage is working, but I'm having trouble getting some of the specialized parts without using a credit card. I can help with that, but we need to move quickly. The alignment is in 12 days, and we need to be in position at least a day before." Olivia glanced around nervously. "My father? Still in the hospital according to your last message. They're keeping him sedated, not enough to harm him but enough to prevent him from communicating." Olivia's voice was bitter. "He knew too much, asked too many questions about my disappearance." "Why did you disappear?" Faye asked. "Because I decoded more of the signal than he knew. I learned that the Sentinel group has members everywhere, police, hospitals, universities. I couldn't trust anyone." She looked directly at Faye. "I still can't, but we need each other now." Olivia explained that she had been living off the grid for 6 months using cash only, staying in places that didn't require ID. She had continued working on the receiver design in secret, making it more portable and efficient. "The final transmission will contain the complete equations for safe energy production," she said, "but it will only be receivable for approximately 6 minutes during the alignment. We need to broadcast it worldwide the moment we receive it, before the Sentinel group can stop us." "How?" Faye asked. "We're just 2 people. I have a plan, but first we need to finish your receiver, and we need to move you. They've probably traced you to that motel by now." Faye felt a chill. "How did you know I was staying at a motel?" "Because that's what I would have done," Olivia said with a hint of a smile. "Low profile, cash only, no questions asked. But they're good at finding people, Faye, really good." As if to emphasize her point, a library security guard entered the rare books room, speaking quietly into a radio. He scanned the few occupied tables, his gaze lingering a moment too long on theirs. "Time to go," Olivia whispered. "Take everything and follow me. Don't run until I do." Faye gathered her bag, her heart pounding as she followed Olivia toward the back of the room, where a staff door stood slightly ajar. The countdown to the alignment had begun, and the race to complete the receiver now had an added urgency. They weren't just building a device to receive a message from the future. They were building humanity's best hope for avoiding a catastrophic mistake. Olivia led Faye through the staff door and down a narrow stairwell that ended at a service exit. They emerged into an alley behind the library, where a battered blue pickup truck was parked. "Get in," Olivia said, unlocking the doors. "We need to retrieve your receiver and then go to my safe house." As they drove across town, Olivia explained more about the signals and the upcoming alignment. Every 73 years, 3 stars line up perfectly with Earth, creating a quantum corridor. Future humans discovered they could send signals back through this corridor, but only for a few minutes during each alignment. She glanced at Faye. "The last one was before we were born. The next is in 12 days. And that's when we'll receive the complete message?" Faye asked. Olivia nodded. "The previous signals were just preparation, making sure we'd have receivers ready. The final transmission will contain the full equations for safe energy production." They stopped a block from Faye's motel. Olivia handed her the signal jammer. Go in, get the device, and come straight back. If anyone approaches you, press this button. It will create electronic interference for about 30 seconds, enough time to get away. Faye approached the motel cautiously. Nothing seemed out of place, but she felt exposed and vulnerable. She used her key to enter the room, quickly retrieved the receiver from the air vent, and was about to leave when she heard voices outside. Room 12, that's the one, a man said. Faye's heart pounded. She pressed the button on the jammer, heard electronic devices outside making strange noises, and slipped out the bathroom window. She ran around the building, staying low, and made it back to the truck where Olivia was waiting with the engine running. They found me, Faye gasped as they drove away. They're tracking electronics purchases, Olivia said grimly, but they won't find us where we're going. Olivia's safe house was an old hunting cabin in the woods, 30 miles outside town. It had no electricity, no running water, and was accessible only by a dirt road that looked unused for years. Inside, however, she had set up solar panels and batteries to power her equipment. Welcome to my home for the past 6 months, she said, lighting a lantern. Not comfortable, but off the grid and secure. They spent the next week working on the receiver, adding the final components that Olivia had already acquired. The completed device was about the size of a small suitcase with the music box at its core, surrounded by circuit boards, antennas, and a small satellite dish. How will we broadcast the message worldwide? Faye asked as they worked. Once we receive it, I mean. Olivia smiled. That's where this comes in. She showed Faye a second device she had built, a transmitter connected to a laptop. I've created a virus that will hijack broadcast signals globally for about 6 minutes. Television, radio, internet, everything. The message will go out everywhere, all at once. Is that even possible? With the right code, yes. I worked in cybersecurity before all this. The Sentinel Group isn't the only one with technical skills. As the day of the alignment approached, they packed the equipment into Olivia's truck and studied maps of their destination, a remote hilltop that would be perfectly positioned during the alignment. The night before they were set to leave, Faye woke to a strange sound. She sat up from her sleeping bag on the cabin floor and listened. It was a musical pattern, but not from the receiver or the music box. It seemed to be coming from outside. She woke Olivia. Do you hear that? Olivia listened, then nodded slowly. It's a harmonic sequence, part of the pattern from the signals. They opened the cabin door cautiously. The sound was clearer now, coming from the forest around them. And then they saw them, lights between the trees, moving slowly toward the cabin from all directions. They found us, Faye whispered. But Olivia shook her head, listening intently to the musical pattern. No, this is different. The Sentinel Group wouldn't announce themselves like this. As the lights drew closer, they resolved into small, glowing orbs floating between the trees. They pulsed in rhythm with the musical patterns, creating harmonies that Faye and Olivia could both perceive. What are they? Faye asked, her voice hushed. I don't know, Olivia admitted, but they're connected to the signal somehow. The orb stopped at the edge of the clearing, forming a circle around the cabin. Then one moved forward, growing brighter as it approached. It hovered before them, its light pulsing in a pattern. That felt like a greeting. Faye, acting on instinct, hummed the pattern back. The orb brightened in response, then projected a holographic image in the air between them. A map of stars with a path marked through them, leading to Earth. It's showing us the path of the signals, Olivia whispered, from their time to ours. The hologram shifted, showing the hilltop they had planned to use for receiving the transmission. But now there were red dots surrounding it. People, dozens of them waiting. The Sentinel Group, Faye said, they know where we're going. The hologram changed again, showing an alternative location, a different hilltop, not far from their original destination. They're helping us, Olivia realized, showing us another place where we can receive the transmission. The orb pulsed, once more. Then all the lights retreated into the forest, leaving Faye and Olivia standing in darkness. What just happened? Faye asked, her voice shaking. I think... Olivia hesitated. I think we just met our future, or at least their technology. They spent the rest of the night repacking and studying maps of the new location. By dawn, they were ready to leave, the receiver secured in the truck bed under a tarp. As they drove away from the cabin, Faye looked back at the silent forest. Why us? She asked. Why are we the ones who can hear these patterns when others can't? Olivia was quiet for a moment. Maybe in the future, this ability is more common. Maybe they specifically chose people like us to receive their message because they knew we would understand it. The hilltop was 8 hours away. The alignment would occur at sunset the next day. They had less than 36 hours to reach their destination, set up the equipment, and prepare to receive a message from 300 years in the future, a message that could save humanity from a catastrophic mistake. Faye looked at the music box nestled within the receiver and felt a strange sense of destiny. Her unique ability to hear musical patterns, once just a curiosity, now placed her at the center of something momentous. For the first time in her life, she understood why she was different. She was meant to hear this message. She was meant to help deliver it to the world.